Greetings, champions, and welcome to Board with Video Games, the gaming podcast that strives for the right balance of coverage for the games you play on your table and on your television. You could think of us as the Mounds of gaming podcasts. We're a proud member of the PSVG podcast network. I am one of your hosts, Kyle, and joining me on this co-op adventure, as he does every week, the guy who likes his coconut the same way he likes his potato chips, and that's dipped in chocolate. Josh, how is it going this evening?
Sometimes you get me like right off. Like sometimes you nail it. There's a big swing and a miss on this one.
Have you ever had? Well, number one, do you like coconut at all?
I love coconut.
Okay. Do you like Mounds bars?
No.
Wait. So you like coconut? Do you like chocolate?
I like chocolate like on its own.
So you don't like chocolate with things?
It depends. I'm picky. I'm a very picky eater.
Have you ever had chocolate-covered potato chips?
Yes.
And you did not like them?
No, I think the only thing I do enjoy chocolate-covered strawberries.
Okay, those are delicious.
But it has to be just chocolate. None of that white chocolate nonsense.
Okay, like if they like sprinkle some nuts or something on there, is that okay? No. Okay.
No. And I do like bacon dipped chocolate.
Ooh, that is good.
Dipped in bacon, whatever you want to call it.
Which is similar to the potato chip, though, because you're getting that salty and the sweet together.
Right. It's too fragile. I don't know. I'm just a weird person, so I mean, yeah.
No,
I'm just a weird guy.
It's okay. I totally understand. I'm a big fan, actually, of chocolate-covered potato chips. Where I used to live many moon ago, it was a very, very popular treat. There was a couple places in town that made them, and that was kind of their specialty. So when we go to hiring events and things like that for work, we always brought chocolate-covered potato chips with us, and that's what we give to candidates and things like that to be like, hey, look, we're hip and groovy, and we do cool things here.
This is a great intro for Talk and Talk.
And one more aside before we get into the full housekeeping situation. How are you holding up after the weekend?
It's been a tough 2 days.
I can understand that.
No, it's fine. It was a good game, and do we have some things I wish we did, like play Butler maybe? Yeah, but otherwise, most people here, we're just not talking about it, and that's how we deal. McDaniel's making some headlines today, which doesn't necessarily
that was crazy.
Make the Patriots look great, but
yeah, that was. So do you think he's your next head coach then after Belichick retires, if he's sticking around now?
Yeah, I mean, this is a big move that shows signs of Belichick leaving, whether it's this year or next, who knows. So yeah, we'll see what happens, but I feel bad for those 3 coordinators that took the job in Indy also, that
no kidding,
don't have a home or they have to go to Indy without a starting quarterback.
And who they thought their head coach was going to be. Like, that's probably why they went there, like, hey, we're going to go work with this guy. And now you're not.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to keep him, but it's just an unfortunate situation.
Hey, and now that the pigskin season is over, just a little over a week or so until pitchers and catchers report.
And the Olympics.
And the Olympics, except, I don't have television, so I don't get to watch the Olympics this year, which is a bit of a bummer. I'm a big fan of the Winter Olympics. But hey, you know what?
There's a norovirus outbreak there, so I don't know if it's even going to happen.
All right. Well, hey, you know what? Unfortunately, this isn't a sports podcast. This is a gaming podcast. So, hey, thanks for joining us each week, everyone. We really appreciate you tuning in. And we appreciate that you let us diverge for a few minutes there to talk about other things. As always, if you have any feedback, questions, or suggested topics, hit us up at Board with VG on Twitter. No one has said, hey, I really don't like when you kind of diverge at the beginning of the show for a couple minutes. So I guess it's probably going to continue to happen, at least until somebody tells us they don't like it. Also, you can check us out on Instagram, also at Board with VG. Josh is over there doing awesome things. And then obviously you can hashtag all of the cool things you're posting at Board with VG to kind of, keep us all part of the conversation, whether you're tweeting at us or not. This way we can all have a conversation together. So, hey, enough sports talk, enough housekeeping things. Let's jump into some games. Josh, what have you been playing on your tabletop?
What an interesting question.
Oh, no. Did you learn more games but not get to play them?
Well, Labyrinth showed up today. I did not learn it. I did open it. But I think, did I get some homework assignments last week? I think I did. I did not play Spirit Island like I wanted to.
Oh no. Oh no.
Which, I mean, Sunday we were literally we started at noon on Sunday, so I didn't do much of anything besides deep fry foods.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you made
So,
quite the spread of food. That was impressive.
and then Saturday was the day with the wife and the kids. So, unfortunately, no board games got to the table this week, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. So I'm just going to talk briefly about a game I was going to talk about when I forgot I had played Gloomhaven,
Mhm.
and that's Escape from the Aliens in Outer Space, which is a long title for a game. It's by Osprey Games, and it is the one I have is an anniversary edition. So this game existed well before I knew it was a game. But the anniversary edition is a nice, like they did a really good job at redoing this game. So essentially, it's a hidden movement game. In the original game, it came with, I want to say, pencil and paper maps. This one came with dry erase markers and dry erase boards for maps. And essentially, what you're doing is, depending on the amount of players you have, you're trying to evenly split the team plays between aliens and humans. And you are picture yourself in the movie Alien. You're essentially in a derelict spaceship, if you will. When you open up the game, each player gets a game board, which is what they are drawing on. And there's probably 10 to 15 different pages you turn, and each page is a map. So you have all these different maps, and they're basically rated by difficulty without saying that. Just the size of the map really kind of tells you what the difficulty is. And the humans start in one of three spots, the aliens start in one of two spots, but they're essentially in the opposite ends of the ship if you start with the recommended scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Change based on that. You can play the game kind of like Santorini with character powers, but it's recommended you try playing the game without the character powers at first, so you can kind of figure out how the game works. And humans are allowed to move a certain amount of spaces, and aliens move different amounts of spaces. I want to say aliens can move 2 spaces at a time, but I'm blanking on the move. It's one or the other, but essentially, as you move, you're marking down on your sheet what grid you're in or what box you're in. And if you step in a certain square, you have to draw a card. Now, there's one of 3 options. There is a no noise card. So you don't say anything, you just discard the card. Then there is a card that tells you you have to say your specific vector or area that you're in. Or there's a card that lets you say any space on the board.
Ooh.
So you can try to throw off. Yeah, not only it's not a cooperative game per se. There are 3 escape pods in the game. When you have to, it's a race to get to the escape pods. It might be 4, but when you get to the escape pod, you literally draw a card, and it's a 50-50 chance of the escape pod failing or succeeding in an escape. If it fails, you have to leave and go to try to get to the next escape pod before getting attacked and killed by the alien or aliens, depending on the situation. If you are killed by the alien, you then become an alien on your next turn, and you join in the hunt to take out all the humans. So if a human escapes, humans win. If all the escape pods bust or all the humans die, aliens win. So it's a pretty fun game. It definitely heightens up the tension in the group. And speaking of soundtracks, that would be a great game to put on, like all the Alien movie soundtracks while you're playing it to like get the mood going. It's challenging, and I think it's unique because uh, there aren't too many hidden movement games out that really capture that same feel. I think the only other one would be last Friday, which is basically the slasher Jason game. But even in that, it's one bad guy versus all the camp counselors.
Right.
In Fury of Dracula is just Dracula and the Hunters of Dracula. But at least they can attack Dracula in that game. Kind of like a Hunt for the Ring, which is a game I want to get, where someone plays Frodo and everyone else plays the Ring Wraiths, trying to find him in a hidden movement game. Same idea. So I think you can find Escape from the Aliens in Outer Space pretty easily. If I remember correctly, I've seen it a lot. I heard about it because Jorge Garcia, who played Hurley on Lost, was a guest on Dice Tower, and that was one of his favorite games he talked about. And it was so
Oh yeah, I remember
I
that
had
now.
never
Okay.
heard of it. So I got out off that recommendation, and we've from the few times we played it, we've really enjoyed it. So I would say check it out if it sounds interesting to you. I think it's like $30. I don't think it's too much.
So in the grand scheme of hidden movement games, is this a good first hidden movement game? Is this you should maybe have some experience in the genre? Where does it sit in that group of games? Because I know you said it's a little bit different, but how does it fit in that group?
So it was our first hidden movement game. So I would say it's a good first one because Fury of Dracula is crazy difficult.
Yes, it is.
And you really need to be able to sit down and prepare for a 2-hour, 3-hour game if it's not going well.
Right.
I would say Fury of Dracula very difficult. Escape from Aliens in Outer Space, good entry level. I haven't played Last Friday yet. I really want to though. We missed out on playing it at PAX because there was a girl who didn't seem too enthusiastic about teaching it, so we kept moving on.
Oh man, I enjoy Letters from Whitechapel, and then what is the one? So that's a solid one, and then the one from Plaid Hat, Spec.
Spec Ops.
Yes, I wanted to say Spec Ops, but I'm like, it's not Spec Ops. That's a different thing that I really like. But yeah, Spec Ops is apparently supposed to be very good as well. I haven't played it yet, but I really enjoy hidden movement games. I just haven't really played that many of them, surprisingly.
Yeah.
So
and it's stressful. A lot of people don't necessarily want to sit down for a intense game session. A lot of times people just want something light and easy.
Right. Absolutely.
Which I get.
Yeah, for sure. So this week I was going to talk about a game, but now I think I have actually, now that I think about it, I think I've talked about it pretty in depth on this podcast. So I'm going to switch on the fly here. I'm going to pull an audible, and hopefully this goes okay because I didn't prep or think about talking about this game at all. But I want to talk for a minute about Alhambra. So Alhambra is one of those games that was one of the, when I first got into playing, the hobby board games, it was one of the first games that I learned and one of the first games I played. And it's one of the games that I still play today. And there's not a ton of those, to be honest. There's not many games from those first couple of years of playing, the hobby style board game that I still play. And Alhambra is definitely one of them. And it fits, I think the reason is it fits the general idea of games I tend to like. It's very, very simple to learn, very challenging to master. It's from Queen Games. And basically what you are doing is you are building your Alhambra. So on your turn, you have money, and then you can use that money to purchase little different buildings to add to your Alhambra. You start with a centerpiece that is open on all sides, and then you can build different colored buildings that are available for purchase. And there are some guidelines and rules about how you can attach them to that Alhambra and all that good stuff, which I'm not going to go into. But on your turn, you can pick to either take some money or you can purchase an Alhambra. Now, if you pay the exact amount, you get to go again. So then you can buy money or take money if you want to. But it's just all about, okay, how do you balance buying the buildings that you need to expand your what you're building? But you have to keep in mind the color rules to a degree because the buildings are different colored buildings are worth different amount of points. So you have to kind of try to keep in mind, okay, what is everybody else playing? Are there certain colors that they're trying to go for? Do I try to fight to have the most of that color, the second most of that color? Do I just concentrate in 2 colors? Do I try to spread myself out among all 5 or 6 of them that there are? How am I going to do that? But then also how I'm going to construct this thing to ensure I can continue to expand it, because there are walls on some of them and only walls can butt up to other walls. And there's all these rules that you have to try to keep in mind while building it. And I think because even though the rules are always the same and what you can do are always the same, how those tiles come out and the values of those tiles and how much you can buy them for change drastically every single game. So the game always feels really different. Whereas there are some, Euro style games that like X action always costs X amount. That's not true in this game at all. Like the really good pieces, which might be worth a lot at the end, might not. They might be in a color that you just happen to have a lot of money in, so it's not that difficult for you to buy in this time. So it's an interesting game, and I definitely recommend it. There's a ton of expansions for it. It's one of those games that there's a definitely things you can add to it, and depending on the version you have, like the board looks different and how you keep track of score looks different. Like there's a lot of different versions of it in there. We have the big box of it, so it came with a few of the expansions. We don't really ever use them. We've tried them a few times, but honestly, I just tend to prefer base Alhambra. I that's where I really tend to feel at home at. But yeah, overall, really solid game. I believe it won the Spiel des Jahres, so I think for as much as that means to people, some of those are great, some of those not so much. But I really recommend it. It's one of those games that I think is a good fit to a collection because, like I said, it's pretty easy to teach. If people, though it has some complex thought processes to it, if people are just getting into hobby board games, it's still something you can teach them, and it's very easy to kind of pick up and understand because you either are picking up money or buying a tile on your turn. That's it. Like those are the things that you are doing. And yeah, there's some other little rules about like moving things around and switching things and putting things in storage. But for the most part, it's, hey, you buy some tiles or you pick up some cash. That's what you do on your turn. So I definitely recommend it. It's one of those games that we still play really regularly. Alhambra is something that gets a lot of play still. And I definitely recommend you check it out if you have not. Have you played Alhambra? You have Alhambra, don't you?
I do have Alhambra, and I did pick up Alhambra, the dice game, which I haven't played yet.
Oh, because I knew that existed, but I don't know anything about it even.
I got like $5 on that miniature market Black Friday sale.
Gotcha.
So I couldn't turn it down for that price.
Because even if you play it in a year, heck, it was $5.
Yeah, it's like I think it's like 30 regular or something like that. So it was a good deal.
That is absolutely a good deal. And sorry if I seem distracted. I was trying to figure out. I had pre-ordered Stuffed Fables, and I was like, "Why is that not here yet?" Apparently, it's been in Kansas for like 3 days. It's supposed to be here by Friday.
Yeah, you should have had that already.
I know. Well, I love cool stuff. Their prices are phenomenal. Their shipping isn't quite as quick as like Amazon, so it's supposed to be here by Friday. But that and Clank are coming together, so
nice.
I'm pretty excited about that. So I was like, "Oh man, when is that coming?" Because got it in my head, and then of course I couldn't stop thinking about it. So
make sure you download that Renegade app.
I am definitely going to. That is going to be one of the things I'm going to do as well for that, because it basically lets you play solo, right?
Yeah, but it also lets you play multiplayer too. It just it just helps you out with that as well.
Oh, gotcha. Well, then I will definitely do that.
Very cool. Alrighty, you ready to move on?
Oh, absolutely. Let's do it. Let's keep the show rolling.
Okay. Well, there are definitely a lot of people with a lot of differing feelings and opinions on Valentine's Day. But you can pretty much put it into two groups. The people who are into it for the festive I love you reminders and the dates and the chocolate dipped things and the roses and the jewelry. And then there's the other people, the people who maybe bloomed late or don't have a lot of money or think it's
bloomed late. What does that even mean?
People who think it's a scam to buy into this greeting card holiday that was made up by whoever's making money. I don't think a specific person's making money on Valentine's Day. Do you?
I think some specific companies probably. I don't know if there's a specific person who's like sitting back and Scrooge McDucking it, but I think there are definitely some companies who
are. So no matter what you think of Valentine's Day, the holiday itself is based around love, and we love games. It's not a stretch, right?
No, not at all. I love games. Me
too. So today we're going to highlight some of the games we love and why we love them. These might be well known. We may have even talked about them before. They might be top 10 games. They might be a game you never heard of. I know Kyle sometimes pulls out these quirky and niche, at least game titles. So who knows what board games you have up your sleeve. And we're just going to kind of tell you why we love them. So Kyle, tell us a game that you love and why do you love it?
So really quick before I do that, I have to ask the question: are you a fan of Valentine's Day?
Oh, what a good question. Yeah, yes, I think so.
Okay.
Is it weird? Yeah, it's a weird pause because I know my wife can hear me in the bedroom. So I feel like I have to say no. I do enjoy it. It's just I think every year one of the two of us is working.
Oh, gotcha.
It's not something that we ever really get to celebrate together on the same day.
Mm.
On the rare occasions, though, we do. We'll go out and have dinner and treat each other.
Well, that's very, very nice.
How about you?
Well, before we get to me, do you ever play games or anything like that on
I don't think
Valentine's
we
Day?
have. I don't think we have. Usually, it's like a movie. Like
Gotcha.
either go to one or stay in and watch one.
Gotcha. Movies are good. Movies are definitely good. I mean, would that new Cloverfield movie be a good pick for Valentine's Day?
Mm-mm.
No. Okay. Good
It's
to
a
know.
it's a great movie. I really enjoyed it, but it's not a romantic movie by any stretch.
I didn't assume so. I didn't assume so.
There is a
I
relationship in it, but I mean, it's not. It doesn't scream Valentine's Day.
Gotcha. I'm actually not a huge Valentine's Day person, and my wife actually does not like Valentine's Day at all. She's very anti-Valentine's Day, mostly because to get a little on the inside baseball side, my wife was a grad student at NIU when the NIU shooting happened, which happened on Valentine's Day.
Yeah. So that makes sense.
Yeah, so she really is not a fan of that holiday. She was on campus and around when that stuff happened. So she's not a fan as a result of that day. This actually will be the 10th anniversary of that incident this year.
Wow.
So yeah, she's not a fan. And not that I'm like, oh, I'm really happy she's not a fan because of this situation. It's just something we don't even talk about. So I actually kind of forget about the holiday every year because it's nothing that's ever on our radar. But that doesn't mean that there aren't board games that I love that I want to share with all of you today a little bit. So one of the games I want to talk about today was actually a game that gets a lot of flack, and that's one of the reasons I want to talk about it is because this is a game that not a lot of people like. A lot of people even say it's not a good game. I will grant them that there are aspects of it that don't make sense for sure, but that game is the DC deck building game. Now, this game, as far as deck builders go, the biggest problem most people don't really like it. One of the reasons I enjoy this game is that there are variable player powers. So you play as a superhero, and that depending what superhero you are playing as, you have different abilities. And for me, I'm a sucker for variable player powers. I think they're great. I really like when they're in games. It's very, very simplistic as a deck builder. There are some really solid strategies that if you know them are, I don't want to say game breaking, but you can really do really well a lot of the time if you just play by certain strategies. And they has this really weird thing of that you have to basically how you win the game is having the most points, but how you end the game is there's a stack of villain cards, and once all of the villains are defeated, the game is over. You add up your points, most points win. The weird thing is though is that once you defeat a villain, it becomes part of your deck. And that's just kind of weird because now like I'm playing as Superman and I'm using like Dr. Bizarro and like all these characters that you're like, well, I just defeated you. Why am I now using you to like recruit Wonder Woman? Like that doesn't make any sense. Like how is this happening this way? So there definitely are some theme things with it, but it's one of those games that it's one of the few hobbyish board games that like my in-laws enjoy playing. So like when we go visit there, like it's a easy enough, simple enough deck builder that they enjoy playing it. My father-in-law especially likes talking crap about Aquaman and how crappy Aquaman is, who I actually think Aquaman is a decent character in the game. But so it's just a lot of fun for me. That's the reason I love it, is just because of the memories that we have with it. It's a game that can be used to be played with my in-laws and all of that stuff. So that's the reason I love the DC deck building game. Josh, what is a game that you love?
Well, it's really funny that that was your first pick because my first pick is Legendary. And more specifically, Marvel Legendary. So if you're listening to this and you recently tried Legendary DXP, on the phones or apps, don't stop listening because it's not the same experience. I mean, I first loved that app. I really did because of the uniqueness of the original characters, but I didn't realize there was a paywall behind advancing any further than the basically tutorial. So enough of talk about that. So Legendary or Marvel Legendary, I mean, you can go either way, but it's a game by Upper Deck, and they kind of came out of nowhere with this game. Upper Deck hadn't been doing anything in the board game industry since they did the Overpower card game, which was many moons ago. And actually, it wasn't Overpower's Versus Systems,
Yes, yes,
which
yes.
they actually have brought back. So the idea of this game isn't too far from the DC deck building, but the mechanics are totally different. So you have a board, and on this board you have HQ, which is where you recruit heroes. What I like about Legendary is there's so many expansions that you can just buy the expansions for the characters because they had so many Marvel superheroes into it. The problem being is some of those heroes come in with powers that aren't necessarily available in the base game, so you kind of need full expansion to play as them. Like the Fantastic Four use powers together, but if you have a deck, you pick 6 heroes. We have them all randomly set up in the box, so you would just blindly pick a hero and play him. But like if you get the Thing, and a lot of his cards say like the Thing needs Mr. Fantastic or the Human Torch to do something, it's no good if you have 5 other heroes that aren't in the Fantastic Four.
Mm-hmm.
Same with the Guardians of the Galaxy characters. They all have kind of abilities that work off each other. But I'm off on a tangent. So essentially, above the HQ is a city scape, and it's a progressive deck. And at the end of the city is a villain deck, and you will flip this villain deck into the most available spot next to the said villain deck. And that progresses, and if villains escape, they have effects that immediately either affect you or the board game itself. And you also have a mastermind villain, which is in the base set. I think it's Loki, Red Skull. I'm blanking on.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of them now too.
Loki, Red Skull. I know there's other ones like Thanos and Galactus and Venom. They keep adding masterminds too. And you also have things called plot twists. Plot twists come out of the villain deck, and it literally like brings the game to a screeching halt, and you have to stop and do whatever the mastermind card says, affecting more heroes essentially. And it's a card drafting game with mechanics similar to Ascension, where you have recruit points and attack points, which are agents of shield. And those are the guys you use to either recruit heroes from the HQ or attack villains in the city. I love it because it takes a game that I'm going to talk about shortly, and it kind of adds new elements to it, and it brings in this huge universe with so much potential. And I just love the theme, and superheroes has always been a big theme for me since I was a kid, and it continues to be important in my life. So it's just fun to play as like Wolverine and Rogue and Phoenix and all these characters, and see all the the different art and the different powers, and you're playing competitively and cooperatively. It's kind of weird. So at the end of the game, if you win, you all win. But if you want to, as they say in the rules, as you defeat villains, you take their card and you can add up their victory points to decide who's the overall winner of the winners. But I'll tell you what, some of those villains are so hard. We must have played Galactus 5 times and never beat him, because sometimes they're just like overpowered. Galactus should be.
True. It's very true. What do you think of the setup and cleanup of Legendary?
It takes forever. It takes forever, which is why it doesn't get to the table much anymore. Because yeah, it literally takes 20 minutes setup and 15 minutes put away. It's insane.
Yeah, we kept buying and buying and buying like all these expansions for it. And then one day we went to play it and I opened it up and I like looked at this box just full of cards. And I was like, I don't want to do this. Like I
Yeah.
just don't want to.
Yeah, if
Like,
you saw the inside of the box that I have, it's ridiculous. I had to keep some of the expansions out because they wouldn't fit in anymore.
yep. Yep, absolutely. No, legendary is great. Have you played any like have you done like legendary encounters aliens or have you done any
Mhm.
of the other legendary ones?
I played Aliens. I haven't played Predator. I I am so close to buying Firefly
Mm,
every time it's on sale, just because of how much I love Firefly. But I haven't bid on it. But I really enjoyed Alien. I like it's a little it's a little bit it's more thematic and it definitely has different gameplay mechanisms, which I think improve the game.
right.
So I will say this: so I did buy Legendary Villains,
I have that too.
and I don't like it at all.
Okay.
I thought it was a great idea, and then it just every time I bought expansions, it's like this can be played with legendary villains, and I think I don't like the option to do that. I'd
Okay.
rather they
Yep.
just put a villains expansion out that's just for villains, and then they're like, oh, buy this, buy this deck. It lets you put the alien cards in with Marvel Legendary.
Yeah, it's
I'm
super
like,
weird.
I don't want Cyclops fighting the Queen like in the hive. Like I don't need that. So I mean, it's cool if people want to do that, but I just didn't love the gameplay of villains. But
Well, okay. So this is my nerd cult, my nerd cred might go away here pretty bad. Uh Alien owned by Fox.
yeah, 20th Century Fox, yeah,
So now, theoretically, Cyclops
could
could.
fight
Well,
aliens. Yeah,
Cyclops could have before, I guess. That would have been okay. But now Wolverine, no, not that one would work. But now any
Captain
other Marvel property
America.
that isn't the X-Men could
Yeah,
potentially fight Alien. Okay, cool.
yeah.
Potentially in the future.
I mean,
Anyway,
it's happened to comics though. Like
that's
you
true.
see stuff
That's
like
true.
with Batman versus Predator, Batman versus
Mhm.
Alien.
Awesome. All right, so another game that I love, and I will go through this one pretty quickly. I've mentioned it offhand on the show before, and this is the game that I've always wanted to play a paper pencil RPG. I've never played like D&D or anything like that. There are a number of them that I find very fascinating, and I've read rule books and all these things, but I've never actually done a campaign or even like a short one. So to scratch that itch, I really am a big fan of Pathfinder: The Adventure card game. So Pathfinder obviously is an RPG, tabletop RPG that exists. Paper pencil, you can do that if you want to. But Pathfinder: The Adventure card game takes all of that and boils it down to multiple decks of cards. And it's actually a game that my wife and I have really enjoyed our time playing. It's kind of it basically is an RPG in a box. You don't need to have a dungeon master or a GM, whatever you want to call them. The game does that for you, and you work through different scenarios. You have characters that you start with that you build stats on, so they have their little board, and you're improving their strength or their cunning or whatever you want to improve with them, and you're getting new cards and you're getting new weapons and you're getting all these new things to improve your character as you work your way slowly through this campaign. That's pretty lengthy, really. I mean, the base box comes with like one part of the campaign that I think has like 4 or 5 scenarios, and then you buy these expansion decks, and each one has like an additional 4 or 5 scenarios in it, plus other cards and all these good things. And there's been multiple base boxes of this setup. So I really think it's a good time. The reason that I love it is kind of the way that my wife and I can play an RPG together without having like a full group, though I still have that desire to happen someday. This is like a good holdover for me and really, in some ways, satiates the appetite for the RPG, but also makes me really want to play like the full RPG experience at some point as well. So if you're interested in that, it can be played. I think it works great with 2 people. If you play with more, I think if it was a regular, consistent group, I think it would be a good fit. And I think if you are looking to play an RPG, but don't have someone who's experienced so to run it like you typically would, this might be a good fit for you or a way to do that. So you don't have to have that person in charge of running everything and coming up with everything. You're just kind of playing to what the game says and kind of play it based on the game story. So I really enjoy it. I definitely recommend it. That's Pathfinder: The Adventure card game. Uh, pretty easy to find, multiple variations of it. And I think all of them are pretty good. So, Josh, what is another game that you love?
So, I thought about this for a little bit. Like, I could easily, there's a lot of games I could name, like Carcassonne and Catan, and even Alhambra crossed my mind. I think there's this like group of games I just kind of just love overall. So I decided I would just pick one from that like pile in my mind. And it's definitely a game we've talked about before. That's Seven Wonders. So, I'll be brief because I'm pretty sure most people know it's always on BGG's top tens. People know about it. But for me, this entered my gaming life when I was just really getting into gaming, and it wasn't like anything I ever had played before, especially with the amount of strategy that is not immediately obvious as you start playing unless you've played before. So on the face, it just looks like a card collecting game where you're trying to like protect your area and build your wonder and get the most victory points. But what it really comes down to is a crazy in-depth, if you want it to be, strategy game, because it depends. And usually when you play, at least my experience, when you're playing with a large group of people, and I think it still plays best at 6 players, but when you have to look to your left and right and worry about military might, no rhyming intended, that can't be where you stop, because you need to be looking at people who are building science and working on all these different things. So if you don't know Seven Wonders, essentially it is a card drafting game where you're going to get a hand of cards, and I think it depends on the number of players how many cards you get in your hand, but essentially it works out to, you will draw a card, put it face down, pass the deck to your left for the first round, and everyone simultaneously plays the card they chose on their board, and everyone's going to get a wonder. Each wonder has different resources or abilities or victory points on it, depending on what you're doing. And your goal is to build your goal isn't even really to build your wonder. It's kind of the theme of the game, but you don't have to do that. But most wonders will give you about 10 victory points if you complete them. But sometimes you'll get additional resources as you're building them. And as you build, most cards at the beginning will be free. But as you continue playing, you'll have to pay gold for cards or resources for cards. But you can also build cards if you have a previous card mentioned. So if you want to build, like, for example, a Pantheon, which gets you like 7 victory points, if you already had built an altar, you can build the Pantheon for free. So depending on what you're doing, and sometimes in some cases you can even build a military card for free based on a different style card played before it. And you also get points for advancing science in your culture. It's basically like Civilization Light, if you've ever played like Civilization, either the board game or the PC game. And I think it's one of those games you can have fun while playing it. You can chat and you can kind of taunt and heckle people if you want, but you can kind of like, everyone's going at the same time. So it's a game where, no one should really feel rushed. I can see analysis paralysis happening a bit in the game. But I don't think we've ever pressured anyone in the game when we've played to do it. So I'm just a big fan of it. I love that game to death. And Seven Wonders Duel fits right into that same category for me.
Awesome. So I want to keep talking about board games that we love, but you know what? We just don't have time. So we'll have to come back to some of these other board games that we love. So let's take a quick turn here and talk about some video games, so we can talk about some video games we love as well. So Josh, have you been playing anything on your television? And if so, what have you been playing?
I think I talked about Celeste last week. Did I talk about Metal Gear last week?
Metal Gear Solid 5, or which one are we talking about?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay, so I jumped into Metal Gear Solid 5 on a whim because I'm
Was it
like,
because Kevin was playing it?
I think it was a little bit. And they talked about it on the OT a little bit, coach's podcast. But um, it's just I have so many games I want to just get into, and one night I just figured I was up. Can only really play games now when the baby's asleep, so it's going to be in small portions. So I played Metal Gear, and I played the prologue, and it's weird.
The prologue apparently is very weird. That is what I've heard as well.
And I don't know. I don't think I'm spoiling the game that's been out for 2 years. It's very weird because, well, there's a lot of things that happen. If you've played Metal Gear, it eventually has a traditional Metal Gear style like action as far as gunplay goes. But the first maybe half an hour of the game is weird like Kojima subtext, like this story. You wake up in a hospital bed, and they you wake up out of a coma. The doctor's telling you these things that are freaking you out. He hands you a mirror, and what you see in the mirror, what I would describe as if they put you or me in snake hair and fake mustache and goatee. It's a guy who clearly does not look like Snake, with just like I didn't know when I was looking at it if this was an intentional or what happened, if it was a graphical thing. It looked horrible. And eventually some things happen. People come in to try to kill you. And I still don't know if this is true or not, but I'm pretty sure they made you look like Snake so he is not assassinated. Because all of a sudden, a dude in bandages comes and sounds like Kiefer Sutherland, and I'm like, okay, that's Snake's voice. So I'm not Snake. But for the whole prologue, you don't play as the protagonist. You play as unnamed hospital dude, patient in the bed. They ask you to customize your character. The doctor's like, we're going to give you facial reconstructive surgery. So then you spend, if you want to, you can spend 30 minutes customizing your avatar.
For someone who you'll play for like a half an hour.
No, the doctor dies before he does the surgery. So I spent all this time making my character's face, and then the doctor dies. I don't even get the surgery, and I'm still weird looking snake guy running around. it's it's like the
Wow,
poor man's Snake.
he's so brilliant, isn't he? Brilliant.
Yeah, it's nuts. So, anyways, I could appreciate the craziness as it was happening. Um, Obviously, I think I appreciate it more now talking about it. But once you get into the gameplay, the action's good. A lot of it's LED gameplay, though. I'm looking forward to getting into the actual storyline. But I'll tell you what, some of the bad guys they show at the beginning of the game are like straight out horror supervillains, and I'm very excited to have to encounter them later in the game.
Very cool.
How about you, my friend?
Well, I was hoping to be able to talk about Shadow of the Colossus today. I have it downloaded. I haven't started it yet, though, because life's been busy. I mean, it's granted it came out today, but
Yeah.
I was hoping, maybe last night or today I'd be able to sneak some in, and it just hasn't worked out. So instead, what I'm going to do, folks know my love for Overwatch, and I've talked about Overwatch before, so I'm not really going to talk about Overwatch today. Instead, I'm going to talk about this other game, which is trying to, I would say, wedge in on some of the Overwatch action, and that's Paladins Champions of the Realm. The group of people I play Overwatch with, we've been going to Paladins from time to time, just kind of, refresh our palate and experience other things while still be able to play together. It's a free-to-play hero shooter. It's on PS4, Xbox, and PC. It kind of takes the MOBA approach, though, because like I said, it is free-to-play, so there's a select number of champions that are always free, a few, like 2 or 3 of them that rotate through being free, and then, I don't know, 15 of them that you have to pay for if you want to ever have them. And you can grind to eventually get in-game currency, or you can just buy all of them and all future champions for $20, which I haven't done yet, so I'm still only stuck to the free ones. But there's basically 3 modes. There's, hey, control this point. The first team to control it for X amount of time wins. There is a capture the point and push a payload to the end, and there is straight up team deathmatch. All of them play pretty differently. All of them have a unique feel. There's not a ton of maps, but overall, like it's definitely passable. Overwatch doesn't have a plethora of maps either, so it's definitely passable. There's 3 types of currency. So, a free to play game, there's multiple currencies, 3 in this game. And there, I swear, I wrote in the show notes a bazillion. There's not really a bazillion chests, but there's probably easily, honestly, about a dozen different chests that you can purchase that are thematic or with different currencies, or you have to do different things, and all of that good stuff. So overall, like, you have these characters, they have different abilities. Some of them are frontline, some of them are support, some of them are flankers. Like, it fits all the things you'd expect to have in a hero shooter. Overall, solid game. Not great, not bad. It's solid. However, there are 2 things about this game that prevent me from saying it is everything I want it to be. One is the matchmaking. The matchmaking isn't great. I don't really feel like there is. I don't know what the algorithm is, or maybe I'm just too new to it and I'm switching characters too much. There are some games that I go in and we absolutely steamroll the other team, and there are other games that we go in and we get absolutely steamrolled. Very seldom has there been a close or competitive game. It seems like in the games that I have played, and I've probably put 10 hours into this game so far, it seems like we either dominate or get dominated. There's very little in between so far in what we've played. The other thing I'm not a huge fan of about it is that when you are starting the game, you pick like a power for your character to have that it's right now one of 4 that it takes one of your abilities and does something special to it. So either increases the damage it does, or it lets you regain health faster. There's these different things, and they're different for every character. You pick one of these 4 things, and then along with that, you pick you have a deck of cards that you pick that supports kind of those things for your character. The important thing to know about these deck of cards, though, is these are the things you're unlocking in these chests that you're getting, and all the dozens of different types of chests there are. These are the things that you're unlocking. So you might have a level 1 card, but then that lets you move, gives you like 10% movement speed. But then if you get enough duplicates of that card, suddenly it becomes level 2 and it gives you plus 12% movement speed. And then it can become a level 3 and it can give you 15% movement speed. And you have 5 or 6 of these cards in your deck. The decks go up to level 50. So it's very possible that in a matchmaking game, my deck might be a deck level 20, and I am playing against a character whose deck level is deck level 50. So it becomes really unbalanced, really fast. Now, granted, this is still an early access game. It is only, I think it's in beta form right now. It is definitely early access. It is not a 1.0 at all. But man, and I think that's what leads to some of those just completely over games that are just totally unbalanced, is that there are things that just make the game feel just unfair sometimes. And I think honestly, these cards have a lot to do with it. I always just pick whatever my highest deck is for this person. And I don't even know if it's always the best, but I feel like I have to compete sometimes. Yeah. And so there definitely is this incentive to continue to play, to continue to get chests, to continue to unlock these things, to continue to improve your deck so that you can hopefully compete with, the people you're playing with. Now, there are 2 modes. There's bound, which means that everyone's character cards are equal. And then there's unbound, which means everyone's just playing with whatever the deck there is. The problem is in bound, there's only 1 game type. So you're always playing the exact same thing. And in unbound is where all of the other fun stuff is. So yeah, it's interesting. I think if you're looking for a free-to-play game that you want to check out, give it a whirl. If you're into hero shooters, or if you're into Overwatch and you want to play something that has a little bit of a different feel, that teamwork maybe isn't, I don't think the whole team comp is as big of a deal there. Give it a whirl, but definitely don't expect quite the polished level that you're going to get out of something like Overwatch. And granted, like I said, it's still in early access. I'm not saying it should be that polished, but there's definitely, for if you play Overwatch and you think prior to this recent patch that Mercy and Junkrat were unfair, you ain't seen nothing. You ain't seen nothing yet, that's for sure.
So would you say a game like Paladins, which is a little heavy on the loot crates, is free, maybe is a little bit better than just some unnamed game that you might have to spend, $80 to $100 on just to get the season pass, and then still has loot crates in it. You think Paladins might be a more approachable financial gaming market?
Are you trying to pick a specific game here?
No.
Like, oh, okay.
Yes, I'm attacking Star Wars.
But they didn't have a season pass, did they?
The game to get no, they did a thing where it's like $80 gets you a 3 cards and
right.
else.
Yeah, but they didn't, because I was like, I didn't think they had a season pass. I thought they
the first one. The first one,
right?
I was
The
thinking
first one
more
did,
of,
yeah. Because I know the second one's like, we're not having a season pass because we want to keep everyone together. Oh, but hey, we need to make more money, so now here's all these loot crates. So
which are
coming back.
Yeah.
Which are coming back. Awesome. Well, hey, we don't have a ton of time left, but I do want to make sure that we talk about some of the video games that we love. So, Josh, what is a video game that you love, and why do you love it?
I think there's 2 glaring ones. If anyone's ever listened to me talk ever about video games on PSVG, so the game I love the most is still Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah. Okay, so I got one of them. I think I know them both, but I don't know for sure if I'm right. We'll see what happens.
Okay. I mean, since we don't have a lot of time, I'm just gonna say, it's a beautiful game, in story and in setting, and graphically, it's stunning. They did a great job with the voice acting; is stellar, and the combat is. Sure, every game in third person is going to have camera issues. It happens. But I love how that combat feels in that game. And just today I saw someone on Twitter saying, like, I'm level 30 and I didn't realize I could have crafted medicine this whole time. Like,
that totally could have been me. It wasn't. I didn't.
Right.
I totally did not realize I could craft medicine for the longest time in that game. I probably was like almost done by the time I realized it.
But that skill tree is so in depth. There's so many options and choices you can go down when you're crafting your character that I don't think that I know anyone. No one's characters are built the same unless you finally get to the point where you've maxed them out. Like, I love that. And if you don't know where the certain ultimate armor set is and you don't do this certain quest to get to it, you don't even have certain armor sets. So it's a game I could talk about forever. It's in my mind, it's a masterpiece. I know that some people don't agree with me, but it's okay because I love the game and it's my love.
That is correct.
And you, sir?
Yeah, so I love that game too, but it's not the game I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about a couple probably more niche games that I want to highlight. One of them being an excellent game that, when I was a younger gamer and people would talk about quote unquote indie games, I was always one of those people who's like, whatever, I'm going to play Call of Duty. It's fine. I don't need anything else. It's not a big deal. Then back in 2011, this little gem from Supergiant Games was released, and that game is Bastion. I adore that game. I have played through that game. I can't even count the times. The music is great. The world is beautiful. The characters are interesting. The voiceover and the narration is spectacular. That is a game to me that is very, very special. And I think really, for me, highlighted how special and cool and unique, quote unquote, indie games can be, and really helped me fall in love with all of those games, at least even to today. When you're talking about Celeste last week and I'm still playing that game, like, I love the fact that those smaller developers can go out and take risks and do different things, or even do things that aren't super quote unquote new, but there's not a huge market for that. They don't have to sell, 10 million copies of the game to be profitable, so they can still give you the types of games that you love. And everything since then that Supergiant has done, I think, is also spectacular. But if you haven't played Bastion, I highly recommend it. It is a really special kind of action role-playing game that tells a very interesting story that's far more compelling than you think it's going to be, and wrestles with, loss and what is right and what is good and what is moral and what is not. And it's just a really cool, interesting game that tells a story in a way you don't expect and is a lot deeper than you think it's going to be. So if you haven't, like I said, I really recommend checking out Bastion. It's on like everything. Like you can play it on just about anywhere. But it is a game that I absolutely adore. Josh,
I really enjoy that game.
awesome. Give me one more, and then we'll each do one more, and we'll call this a night.
Okay, well, I want Mass Effect 2 would be my second game I love of all time.
That's what I was gonna pick.
So I'm not gonna talk about it.
Okay.
Also, Lost Odyssey, Spec Ops: The Line. Those are games I love very much. But what I want to talk about, a game that I love, that isn't so. It's still a big title, but it's something that I don't talk about too often. Is Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic, because for me it was my first game that really got me into the action RPG aspect of games. It might be the first game. I mean, Final Fantasy, I think, is just JRPG all the way. But I think the BioWare's first, I think it's their first game in that console generation. I don't think it's their first game ever. But that Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic was a game that took people who were just interested in the Star Wars title, and probably that's how they sold the game, and they threw this crazy story at you, which is so good and so shocking. and they added this combat system that I had never seen before. And I could be wrong. It probably was on PC. There's probably PC gamers who are familiar with gameplay like that, but I had never seen anything like that on a console. And to be able to craft a Jedi or a bounty hunter and really be able to take the specific skills that you think are important to your character and build that person up was crazy new and unique for me. And it really kind of led the way for Mass Effects and games like that that are in that genre, and Lost Odyssey. Those are games that are very similar in gameplay or character crafting. So I really loved that game, and the sequel was fantastic as well. I don't know if it holds up, and I'm scared to try it on the back compat. But if it's a game you've never played, I mean, try it. I wouldn't say go buy it, because I don't know. I mean, it is an Xbox One game, so those games don't necessarily hold up super well.
Well, OG Xbox, not
OG.
Xbox.
Sorry, not Xbox One. Sorry, OG. Just plain old Xbox. Monster Box. So that would be the game. One of the games I truly love, like top 10 games of all time love. And how about yourself, sir?
So this other game, I was hemming and hawing about what to cover here, and I'm actually going to cover a game I don't think I've ever talked about on PSVG stuff. I was going to talk about Spec Ops, but we've talked about that before. I was going to talk about Bayonetta, but everybody knows how much I love that. So I'm going to go into the way back machine and talk about that. For a time in my life, there was probably a solid year and a half that I wasn't playing Call of Duty. I wasn't playing Halo. I wasn't playing anything like that. The game that I was playing with my friends online was Phantasy Star Universe.
Oh, wow.
Hundreds and hundreds of hours of Phantasy Star Universe. Now, looking back, it wasn't a great game. And I even think if you went and read the reviews for it, they're not going to be very promising. And they're not going to be very glowing. But that was a game that was really the first time I played a lot of online games with my friends. And that every night we would sit down and we would go and we would do the exact same runs that we have been doing for the last year in that game on our 360s. And that was a game that, like I said, you know, it was from Sega. I think it was actually made by Sonic Team over there. Like it does not have the same love and affection that like Phantasy Star Online has, that people just adore Phantasy Star Online. And I've always wanted a Western release for that. But Phantasy Star Universe, a game that I love because it really was my first foray into that. Obviously, it's not an MMO necessarily, but like having those multiple people running around a base and seeing people that you're not engaging with or not in the game with. You can do matchmaking to have them come in with you. Like this was really my first experience with any game like that. And I loved it. The funny thing is, I haven't really played a game like that since then. I definitely have some desire to, but again, knowing the time commitment that's there is not something I've ever really fallen back into. But there was a time in my life that Phantasy Star Universe was all I was playing all of the time. And I really just adore and still love that game. It's got a very, very soft spot in my heart. So even if it wasn't great, it was a game that I absolutely loved. Did you ever play Phantasy Star Universe?
I don't know if it was Universe. Whatever was on the Dreamcast, I tried.
Okay. And I never had a Dreamcast.
Star, it might have been, was it online? Did online come to the US?
Oh man, it may have. I don't even remember. Like I know the Phantasy Star thing, like I don't want to say universe. The Phantasy Star games there are people who really, really like them. Yeah. I don't know anything about them other than playing Phantasy Star Universe. Like I know or maybe with Phantasy Star 2 people. I don't know. I'm not even gonna start commenting because I know I'm gonna be way wrong as to what it was supposed to be. I know there was a Dreamcast one.
I tried one of them on the Dreamcast, but I didn't have anyone to play with, so it didn't really grab me.
Yeah. So overall, solid game. Like I said, it is a game that I have a very soft spot for. I'm sure, and I haven't looked, but I'm sure if you went back and read reviews, I feel like it probably didn't review very well. But I really enjoyed that.
I think it was on Master System, right? The original ones, like Phantasy Star 2.
I think so, yeah. I believe I played those as well. So awesome. Well, hey, those were some of the games that we loved, and we probably definitely have more that we could have listed. But we want to hear some of the games that you love and why you love them. So hit us up at Board with VG on Twitter. Use that hashtag Board with VG. Talk to us about the games that you love and why you love them. With Valentine's Day coming up, let's get a little sentimental and let's talk about those things that we love. What do you say, Josh? Should we call it a night?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Awesome.
We got a snowstorm coming in. So thanks for joining us, everyone. As always, remember, you can find us on social media at Board with VG. That is on Twitter and Instagram. And make sure you're using that hashtag Board with VG for your posts. I mean, we had a pretty good 2 weeks of people active using that hashtag, so let's keep it going. I'm slowly working on getting PSVG Kevin to play some board games with me at some point. We'll see how that pans out. And I'm working on, I don't know if you saw me engaging Renegade today on Instagram, my personal account, but I'm working on something. Hopefully that will benefit us in the long run. So you guys can find me, if you want to see my Instagram, it's dad, gamer, it's COMMA. You can also find me at Josh Bones on Twitter. And if you really want to find me on consoles, why don't you hit up our Twitter and do a hashtag Board with VG? Where can we find Josh? And I'll give you my gamer tag and my PSN name. That's pretty much all I have. What about you, good sir?
As always, you can find me everywhere. Social media, gaming consoles, Board Game Geek, all that stuff at Psychocross, CYCOCROSS. As a reminder, my plan still tentatively, Game Informer in Minneapolis is holding their 300th issue celebration Saturday, March 3rd at Fulton Brewery. The funny thing is, I think I have talked about this more than they have on their podcast. I actually wrote into them last week and I was like, dudes, what is happening with this thing? Because there's an advertisement for it, but it doesn't say anything. And they said supposedly this week they will tell us more. So hopefully you'll know more about it. But like I said, Saturday, March 3rd at Fulton Brewery in Minneapolis. If nothing else, Fulton Brewery makes great beer. So, hey, go have some great brews. We'll hang out. It'll be great. We'll have some fun. We'll talk about games. It'll be awesome. If you have suggestions for future topics, be sure to reach out to us on social media. We have a lot of things that we've been talking about behind the scenes in the work. So if there's things that you'd like to see, reach out to us. We have some ideas that we're spitballing, but we'd love to have your feedback as well. So hit us up at Board with VG, send us a direct message, or come to the PSVG Discord and chat with us there. Yes. If you go to PSVG's website, or not website, but or the website, but also their Twitter is just a pinned tweet, and you can hang out and come talk to us. So everybody, as always, remember, whether it be board games or video games, never stop gaming.